things which people have spoken right from the panel to the various interventions. They were really not questions, but things which they are bringing to our attention to ensure that as we do policy, we take care of them. I will say all of these proposals that are practical will be adopted. Those that are not will not. And right from the panel, I've heard Sarah Birete, my good friend there, speaking about her lovely topic these days, debt. I've taken note of it. And reinforced by the senior there, His Excellency Kaboyo. These are their excellencies. The debt, I wanted to comment on it briefly. We actually publish regular reports on the debt position of Uganda. We publish what we call annual reports every single year since 2015. We have been publishing a report on the following: public debt, guarantees, and other financial liabilities and grants. The latest one was published in March of this year, a 154-page document. But when I hear that people saying they don't have enough information about debt, these are on the website of Ministry of Finance, and they are in libraries of public institutions, including Parliament, universities, and at our library at the ministry. And they are often also published in media. This reminds me of that popular saying, if you want to hide something from Ugandans, publish it. Please, the numbers are there. They show us all the necessary information we need about the debt position. The debt level, plus all of these liquidity ratio aspects. Our debt is largely external, still. About 63% of our debt is external. Our debt is largely concessional, still. 61% of the debt of Uganda is concessional, from multilaterals especially. Only 12% of our debt is commercial, and 28% is bilateral, mainly from China. And of the multilateral, our debt is mainly from World Bank, IDA, 56%. Then IMF, ADB, and so on. Those debts which literally it's about paying back the principal. The interest is negligible, is very low, less than 1%. So we don't have much trouble in servicing the debt. It's amortization of that debt. And what we are going to do, we are going to arrange a conversation on debt, so that perhaps, because these documents, when we publish them, we take it for granted. They are not effectively communicating. And we have an open conversation on it with the numbers and facts, so that everybody because I hear a lot of echoes about debt, I think that anxiety needs to get out. And by the way, it contributes also to the market dynamics. When ourselves we are saying, our debt is too much, we are now bordering fragility, those strong words. The markets respond by actually charging us higher terms. So we shall arrange this and have a conversation. But as we have that conversation, we shall have two parts of it: the public debt, but also the private debt. And you will actually see that where we should put a lot of concern in Uganda is the rate at which private debt has grown. The debt by you and me and everybody, personal debts and business-related debts. Most of the people who carry out conversations on the public debt are more indebted than the country itself. So we need to have a conversation, an honest conversation on these debts. And we are going to bring the numbers and we discuss them. That one I promise. Well, I'm going to arrange with NTV and others, and we have that conversation. The other issue I wanted to comment on briefly was on the taxes, another, again, major issue. Imagine Uganda's taxes, some people think are very high, the tax burden. I even had a statement that our taxes are the highest. Are those facts? Uganda's tax regime actually is one of the lowest, not only in the region, but in the world. There are very few countries, and we are going to, again, discuss with the numbers. The challenge has been, and we are addressing it, on having this taxability falling usually on the same cohort. And how do we spread it to ensure that it falls to a bigger group, a bigger register? And those are the efforts we are working on, how to get the tax register to expand beyond the statements we have been just talking all of the days. This is what gives us sleepless nights, to make it more broad-based and falling to many people. But I want to assure you, my Kasita, and you know Kasita, the government is very happy with Kasita, Honorable Ameria. These days, Kasita, they have gotten saved. And thank you for working on them. We usually have conversations in what we call the presidential private sector CEO forum, where the president has learned, and he recently was saying, I think Kasita has transitioned from, is it Paul to Saul? Something like that. I'm not very good at Saul to Paul or Paul to Saul. When you become better, very good. By now working on how do we invest in that capital they were using to import in a production for export, and also production for import substitution. And you have confirmed from him when he was presenting this. And we are going to work very closely with Kasita to ensure that we work on this. I know the reason they were feeling sometimes the pinch of the tax is because the import taxes in the region, they have a component of the CET, the Common External Tariff, which is intended to protect the region. So imports tend to attract a relatively higher tax rate than the products which originate from those jurisdictions which we are working with. So when you produce to export, you pay zero tax. You produce to import substitute, you pay very low tax. And that's what we want now to encourage the businesses to do. He also complained about export discipline versus the local market. Casita doesn't want us to inculcate export discipline in our farms. I think for countries to become competitive economies, the players must learn the art of exporting, because that's when you can fetch money to bring it and expand the economy. And we are going to incentivize that more. The more you produce for export, the more incentives you are likely to get from us. If you are producing to just, perpetuate the small economy, there's what we call the economy of small monies. Some people in some villages of Uganda can easily be sharing 20,000 shillings in a day, giving it from one person to another, then to another, and it keeps on rotating around you. And you think you're doing economics, but rotating around, multiplying 20,000 from one store to another, But when we build the capacity to export, we are going to create productive and good jobs and also get more incomes. So we shall inculcate more export discipline, but also supporting especially the local entrepreneurs to engage in that. I come now to the last one I wanted to comment on. The rest I've taken note myself. I have here a notebook which is full. I don't even know where to start. So we have taken note of every contribution, and one thing I do, I am very good at listening. I think Private Sector Foundation, Madam Sarah Kajingo wants us to redefine the local farm. I've heard that before. I didn't know how serious it was. I've heard people saying, please, finance, UIA and others. There is what we call a local. We are local, but should be indigenous. Local. We are going to study that. What does it mean? What are the implications? And ensure that we promote also the local entrepreneurship. But as you know, Ugandan economy is an open, free market economy and very recipient of especially private investments. Because Uganda is capital constrained and technology constrained. The more you attract capital to Uganda, especially equity, and the more you attract technology to Uganda, the better for this economy, for everybody. So we shall continue to ensure that that mix is catered for. But I've heard before, and now you have reminded me, the local concept. Lastly, Honorable Amelia, I've heard the various concerns of the private sector, and the good thing now with Honorable Amelia, she's now a true professor of private sector, because she has been at the highest level of government, perhaps policy making and decision making in the cabinet, in all the important places you can think of. And now she is in the trenches where the private sector actually stays every day. So when she speaks, we have extra attention to that. We have had the need to provide for mitigations, especially the climate change aspects, which the deputy governors ably talked about. But how do we get now more practical? That's what I think she's asking. These people who are affected by floods, by drought, and so on, in the next budget and policy cycle, what are we doing to ensure that we get them back to productive lives? We have had this very well, and I'm going to take it up. The correlation between population growth and infrastructure growth, it's a concern, Honorable, for so many people. We are trying to build infrastructure to catch up, but you know the best way to actually manage this conundrum is investment in human capital, is investment in people. Well-educated, employed people don't love rearing many children. It's usually, you know, it's actually very interesting. Broke people love to rear children. They will produce so many because they have all the time on their hands. But when people get educated and they are working, they are busy, and they are having incomes, they tend to have fewer children, because you know rearing children is sometimes a full-time job itself. So when we educate many people, many of our younger people, I'm sure in the next generation that is coming, this will no longer be a problem. When you go to many of these developed countries, they no longer promote certain things. The affluence and education are the most effective family planning methods. And finally, on the NTBs, this one, Honorable, we discussed even in Arusha last week. It's something which everybody is getting concerned, the resurgence of NTBs, the non-tariff barriers. And for me, I've always hosted the idea that we need to have, and I told it to my colleagues, the secretaries to the treasurer of the region when we were in Arusha, that we need to start having conversations of industrial policy at regional level. They shouldn't happen in small rooms like we do in Uganda, in Kenya, because we are more or less having comparable, comparative and competitive advantages. That's why Kenya locks out sometimes our products. Tanzania doesn't want our sugar, because all maize going, because we are all producing similar things. And now it is affecting manufacturers because we have all promoted similar industries. So we need to have a conversation at regional level, and we agreed this is what we are going to do in the next regional initiative. And maybe, Honorable Maria, we should have perhaps looked at buy East Africa, build East Africa, and avoid the other one. But that's a conversation for another day. so that we can have cross-border trade which is healthy, and people are not feeling protective of their sovereignties. Lastly, I wanted to comfort you that private sector, we are coming up with a number of initiatives. World Bank gave us a very good project recently. Again, another concessional funding. It's like a free money, about $200 million to invest in those SMEs that are ready to export, that want to export. We call it invite. And the Bank of Uganda will manage this money. So when it doesn't work, that deputy governor is the one to answer. Me, I've done my job. So these things of fresh handling, storage facilities which we can't build, these ones we should do quite easily. This small infrastructure in our small industrial parks. I was at Tripati, it's called Tripati. We are going to really support those initiatives practically. What I'm saying is, we are in the mode of industrial policy. We are in the mode of ensuring that we move the structure of our economy to another level where productivity of our people, productivity of our resources is improved, and we export, we earn more money, and Uganda will be happier with more jobs, more money in the hands of people. We shall stop having all these quarrels we are having about on small things. I thank you very much, and thank NTV for partnering with the Ministry of Finance and other partners. I thank my MOOBS Economic Forum. I saw Valentine is there. There's a lady who I used to work with at MOOBS who's keeping now, I think, the mantle going with Dr. Muhumuza. I thank everybody